I asked former Foreign Minister Alexander Downer what he made of all this.
Well, it's typical of the ideology of the Labor Party, which believes in multilateralism for its own sake, whereas I suppose the centre-right of politics is much more enamoured with the promotion of the national interest. So if you're a practical common sense person, you would know that the United Nations has been spectacularly unsuccessful in addressing any of the really big issues the world faces today. I mean, it's done nothing about, literally nothing about ending the war in Ukraine, and that's been going on for some years now. It is completely played out of any negotiating role in the Middle East. I mean, the Israelis and the Hamas people use the Qataris as their negotiator, not the United Nations. And when you think of the conflicts around the world, the United Nations has almost no involvement in trying to resolve any of them. So I'm sorry about this, because I worked for the United Nations myself for 6 years, but they really have been reduced to just a house of virtue signalling and nothing more.
Well, when you talk about virtue signalling or gesture politics, that's Anthony Albanese's approach when it comes to the war in Gaza, along with Britain, Canada and many other countries, recognising a non-existent state, they say, is the path to peace and a two-state solution. Donald Trump yesterday was far more pragmatic and realistic. Have a look.
But instead of giving in to Hamas's ransom demands, those who want peace should be united with one message: release the hostages now. Just release the hostages now.
He's dead right, isn't he, Alexander? That's the way to end the war.
He's dead right. If they release the hostages and stop the fighting, if Hamas stopped the fighting, having released the hostages, everyone would thank them and the war would end. The war is continuing because they're holding the hostages, and they're continuing to fight the Israelis and shooting at, in one way or another, Israeli soldiers. So that is continuing the war. What is disgraceful is the way the United Nations and some left-wing Western governments place all the onus on the Israelis to end the war. That Israel should give up. Israel should surrender. Israel should leave the hostages there, and Israel should leave Gaza in the hands of people who want to eliminate Israel from the face of the earth. That is the request that is being made, and you can be 100% sure that the Israelis are totally deaf to this pleading. It is absolute nonsense. It is performative, virtue signalling, symbolic nonsense. It has no practical common sense value at all.
Yeah, the left so often try to portray Donald Trump as the madman, but he must have felt like he was the only sane person in the room yesterday, because the other issue where he spoke just common sense, an area where he's got a strong record, but where so many world leaders seem unable to even confront the problems, let alone deal with them, is immigration. Have a listen to this.
Not only is the UN not solving the problems it should, too often, it's actually creating new problems for us to solve. The best example is the #1 political issue of our time, the crisis of uncontrolled migration. It's uncontrolled. Your countries are being ruined.
Again, Alexander, he's so right. When you look at the problems in Europe, in the UK, with the problems that Australia got on top of twice, and the problems now that the US have finally gotten on top of.
Well, I can tell you from long experience that when we stop those boats coming to Australia, bringing people illegally, courtesy of people smugglers, amongst those who opposed us was the United Nations. They were vitriolic in their opposition to what we were doing. They tried to stop their best they could, tried to stop the British from stopping the boats coming across the channel. They've chastised the Germans because when they let 1 million people in, there was a huge public reaction to that, and the Germans have clamped down on illegal immigration. And where are the public at? In the UK, in France, in Italy, in Germany, and all those countries, there has been a mass public revolt against illegal migrants pouring into their countries. And they have at least, and the British haven't been very successful, but those countries have at least started to crack down on it. But where is the United Nations? It's encouraging this mass flow of illegal migrants. So no wonder Donald Trump is fed up with the United Nations, not just because the escalators was turned off when he and his wife were on it, which I thought was a little bit discourteous.
Yes, who knows? Who knows? There's a whole investigation into what was behind that. But just finally, on energy, Donald Trump again said he's into cheap, reliable energy. That's been the foundation of modern civilization. Yet today, Xi Jinping beams in from China, and he pretends that China, the largest emitter in the world that's still growing, a place that's building 300 coal-fired generators as we speak, Xi Jinping says they're going to start winding back their emissions, and the whole room applauds. I mean, this, again, is nonsense, isn't it?
It is nonsense because China, the world's biggest emitter, is continuing to build coal-fired power stations, gas-fired power stations. So, yes, they're sending out a message that they're moving towards a, greater dependency on renewables. But they are a huge emitter. And of course they don't set themselves the kind of, unrealistic virtue signalling targets that a country like Australia, which produces 1% of global CO2 emissions, that Australia sets itself. I mean, the Chinese Communist Party may be a lot of things, but it's certainly not mad. It's not going to sacrifice economic growth and the living standards of its people on the altar of some United Nations target.
No, they say what people want to hear, and the fools applaud them. Thanks so much for joining us again, Alexander.
A pleasure.